In this video, we're going to discuss why does the trend across the row of a periodic table for atomic size decrease? So when we're moving across a row for the periodic table, the atomic size decreases. But when we are dealing with a non-metal atom gaining an electron, one electron, then the atom gets bigger. If you remember over here, the atomic size as we're moving across decreases. The reason being is we said that we added a proton and electron each space. So every time we move from one element to the next element to the next element, we're adding a proton and an electron. While adding a proton and an electron, we end up with what is called a greater nuclear attraction. Sometimes they abbreviate that as GNA. Greater nuclear attraction. There is a greater attraction for the nucleus because you have both an extra proton and an extra electron as you move from one element to another. Because of that greater nuclear attraction, the atom squeezes in on itself. But here, when we've taken a non-metal gaining electrons, when we've taken a non-metal that's gaining electrons, the important part here is we are not also adding a proton. So in this case, although we are gaining an electron, like here, moving from one space to another space, gaining electron, we are not also gaining a proton or adding a proton. So we do not get a greater nuclear attraction. We only add electrons. Because we are only adding electrons, there's not a greater pull towards the nucleus, and there is only added repulsion from added electron. And because of that, when you move from a non-metal, that's an atom, that's gaining an electron, turning into an ion, a negative ion, the ion expands and gets bigger. But when you're moving across a row of the periodic table, looking at atomic size, you're adding a proton and an electron, so you get a greater nuclear attraction. The atom squeezes in on itself, and as you move from left to right, the atomic size decreases. But when you're talking about a non-metal atom gaining electrons to form an ion, you're only adding an electron, not an extra proton, so it actually expands. We talked about this outer energy level with the electrons maybe being like people at a picnic, and when another person comes in, they spread out to give themselves each enough space. I hope this helps in understanding the atomic trend size moving across a row versus a non-metal atom changing from an atom to an ion.